Morning, guys. Still about 35, 36 degrees this morning. Damn, that's cold. No wonder my legs are having a field day over this. Today at 11 in the morning Pacific Standard Time. It's still March 16th, 2021. I'm John C. Roseman, California. What's going on, guys? Well, apparently the Tucker Carlson event is still going on at this point. Still emanating. I swear when Rush died, it put Tucker Carlson in the top spot in the cheap seat where Rush lived. So now Tucker Carlson is all mouth, just like Rush. I never did like Rush, and I never did have any respect for the bastard. I pitied him for all the shit he was going through and his family. Felt sorry for him. But that's basically it. I still think he's a mouth. And now you've got the other mouths coming up to take his place and trying to feel their dominance over everybody and everything. Carlson's one of the things when he starts attacking women in the military. And then you had the USMC, a few people in there, going above and beyond the call of duty to defend the women in the military. There's even been reported tweets that have been taken off the air, calling out Carlson for getting pregnant and serving in the military, then talk to us about it. To paraphrase something like that. That was pretty choicey. That was pretty cool. But then again, it's not very professional of a military personnel to do that in the first place. So therefore, Senator Ted Cruz has got to stick his head in and defend old Tucker because of what the Marines have done. And I don't know why Ted Cruz is getting involved in this stuff in the first place. I still think he's a fucking moron. I don't think he ever served a day in his life. But if he starts supporting someone else who denigrates the United States military, and yet he's one of those guys who claims he supports the military, well, this is your typical hypocrite. This is your typical politician. Talks out of both sides of his mouth at the same time. Now, keep in mind what principles are being in play here. And people keep forgetting this one here. It's the First Amendment at work. In a democracy situation, as theoretically as we are supposed to have, everyone has opposing philosophical points of view and opinions. And we can get testy or we can get right down nasty to it. We have the right to say it. But the problem is, free from repercussions from government, as long as they're directed at the government. Now, anybody else is open season because of civil liabilities. Carlson in his mouth had been going off like crazy, like every other damn pundit out there. He's looking for ratings. He's looking to continue the Trump era, so to speak, at a new level. The military is going to have to grin and bear idiots like this while they start weeding out the people who don't think and feel the same damn way. Because there have been military personnel who have left in one way or another to go after the U.S. military one way or another. And the government by opposing and supplanting and going after whatever they need to go after or whatever they feel the need to go after. It goes well beyond the First Amendment rights. It goes into basically internal terrorism, if you want to call it that way. And we had seen this January 6th at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. All the damn nut jobs out there trying to support the last current administration, holding on to its breath. They get fired up from the rhetoric And instead of the originator joining them, he leaves for the quiet comfort of his soon departing home, while his own followers go out there and start raising holy hell. And we're slowly but surely trying to find those in the parade of who would want and who has harmed our Constitution, our way of life, and everything else. And they call Biden a hell of a lot of name calling at this point over here, thinking he's not fit for government. Well, when I have a former administrator chomping at the bits and firing up the conservative base left and right of conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory that gets getting shot down left and right. But they call it truth. They call it facts. Everything else is fake news. And they use this rhetoric to blindside everybody, and those devoted enough who are brain dead enough to follow this stuff. Get them brainwashed into thinking their own way, because this is how it's supposed to be. That's why we're still having the conflicts. That's why we're still having the court battles. That's why we're still having major discussions over this, because this is what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to have counter discussions. We're supposed to have action taking place at this point over here, and what they'll hear is action. They consider hostility. And then they'll start screaming and yelling that, see, what I tell you, it confirms. Because of a slip of a tongue or use of wordage. These nutjobs are firecrackers. Give enough of the firecrackers, they could blow off a roof. And they did. They have. And we're still going to be dealing with everything of this nature for decades or centuries on end. Because it won't. It'll still propagate itself. It won't start. It's already been creating monsters as it is. We got Frankenstein creating more of his creations out there. And then those creations become Frankensteins, who creates their own creations and so forth. Propagating their own bullshit. Getting back to the First Amendment rights at this point over here. There had been a landmark case, I believe up in Ohio. And I may be sketchy on the location and times, but I know it happened back in the 70s, a place called Skokie. I probably got to stay around. I'll probably like to research that one. But I understand the part about the case of a Jewish neighborhood getting infiltrated and paraded and rioted, sort of, by a white supremacist American Nazi Party at the time, who denouncing the Jewish community and everything else about them. All the anger, all the hatred. They were going to go into this town in March. They couldn't do it. They got arrested. Lawyers went over to the Supreme Court after exhausting appeal after appeal until they got into the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court actually did support their First Amendment rights to spewing off all this hatred. However, that's the only thing they allowed. So they have the right to protest like this. They have a right to march. But, and people have forgotten about this one. It was the city and the community that set the standards on where, when, and how. You may have the freedom of speech. You may have the right to say whatever you want. However, there are always consequences down the road. And pretty shortly, we're going to be dealing with a lot of those consequences, biting us in the ass. Anything we say that may or may not be held contrary comes up to bite us in the ass one way or another. Guys like Carlson feed on negativity like this. Makes their head grow bigger. Their egos swell to enormous. And they think they're gods. If they start thinking themselves as godly and worldly and think they're all religious, I think they're all hypocrites at this point over here. Only because they don't know what humility, humbleness, and service is, or servitude. They wouldn't know what it is to accept people as equals. They don't care. The elitism, the ego, us versus them, whatever kind of head games that they're playing in the kindergarten level, has grown to a point where they think they're going to be controlling everything, and one of these here days they're going to be finding out all they were controlling is smoke and mirrors. Eventually the world will crumble. You can't build glass houses on sand or a sandy beach. Of course you could. However, given wave action and geology at the time, not exactly very feasible. But you're welcome to try. That goes along with your own comments. You build your glass house of transparency on the water just so you can get the view. But your own ugliness coming out of it, and you might call it your own perspective of it, your own viewpoint of how the world is, kind of crumbles when reality bites you in the ass, takes away your foundation, and there goes your house. We're very fond of using metaphors, we humans, because metaphors will teach us something. Our holy books that we have are full of metaphors. Some people are actually able to understand them, the others are scratching their heads. But this is how we learn by sometimes. We can be taught the mathematical skills. We can be taught the geometric, geophysical nature of the universe. We can be taught all the damn sciences in order to run a universe physically. But the essence and the spirit of it is a different story altogether. Of course, you're scratching your head. How does this work? Because everything has a balance out there. If anything gets out of balance, everything else goes hell in a handbasket, so the universe struggles like crazy to find a balance, find syncopy. And the problem is, if we can't get anything in line and sync, well, then we're screwed, aren't we? So think of our world right now as that. Constantly on the edge, constantly teetering around this ball of glowing hot gas. This blue and green marble. All the opinions that we have concerning about the individual life forms on here are different and unique. But the thing of it is, what we can't stand is the ugliness of ourselves at this point over here. So we try to prim and prop us up. We try to put on the pomp and circumstance of how important we are. It's only the thing is we're feeding our damn egos at this point over here without even realizing our own point of the universe is not to do that damn shit. But unfortunately I tell people that one. Because they can't understand it. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with concepts like that. Are you kidding me? I'm here for a short time. I'm out for me, not for you, so screw you. If I'm going to run your ass over, I'm going to run your ass over. It's your fault, not mine. If you're black and I'm white, I'm more superior than you because I'm white and you're black. No matter how many times we keep seeing television shows that kind of demonstrate that situation to us, or how many books we can read, or how many lectures and sermons, it still comes down to the individual choice, whether or not we are black and white, or we're actually able to accept everybody as unique. Or are we going to be doing us versus them from now on? And if we are, just how much of a world are we going to have left as soon as we finish with our little war over here? Is anything left for you to live or survive upon? There are stories taught to us in different formats to educate us in this fashion. Education is the worst thing for the detractors because they can't go against it. They think they can with their mouth and their rhetoric and their mouth and their brawns, but not brains. It goes against them. But they would clearly have linguistic skills in order to tap dance, in order to prove that they are smarter ones. Well, when they start going for division and derision at this point over here, pitting people against each other, well, then we have a problem then, don't we? Because that's supposed to be the intelligent choice? Contest of the fittest? Are we going to be doing survival of the fittest for everything at this point over here? Since when have we landed in the world of Sparta? Sparta was supposed to be democratic, but yet they weren't democratic. Trial by combat. Of course, people keep forgetting what history is all about. And then again, every time we find something new in history, as a professor told me, history kind of rewrites itself a little bit. So maybe we do have a past that needs to be rewritten left and right, but they're usually saying it's being rewritten by the victors and not the defeated people. Well, depending on your point of view and your perspective at this point. Brings me back down to the situation regarding insulting women. Women who have been fighting alongside men one way or another, supporting them at home or supporting them on the front lines. So now we're supposed to denigrate our sexes for serving in the military. Yes, it's taken me about a couple of weeks just to get to that situation there, because I couldn't stomach and handle all this insanity here. All those politicians keep saying that they support the military, and yet they support the denigration and derision of the U.S. military. The very same people who supported them, the very same people that the politicians call upon to defend upon. But they're going to laugh and joke about it. They're going to allow the political pundits to say anything about it. And because of the First Amendment rights, they have the right to do so. And that's the hardest damn thing for us to understand in a democracy at this point over here. Our First Amendment rights give us that ability to disagree with everybody. We struggle to find a common ground and a common cause to support the common welfare of our country. If we can't find that, well, then we're screwed, aren't we? We even have to support the ugliness of the right to say the ugliness. We don't like the intent. Not supposed to like the content or the material being presented. But under the First Amendment, there are certain legalities regarding it that they are allowed. If someone actually has an opinion, a strong opinion concerning about the military, they have the right to disagree. But it doesn't protect them of the consequences afterwards. And believe me, the consequences are a hell of a lot worse than the insult was. I am not the one saying it. Of course, you can rewind the tape and say, aha, he's promoting. Nope. I've seen through experience that I've read too many accounts. History has a way of biting people in the ass. Karma's not nice to the ass, that's for sure. So, a fair warning when it comes down for the First Amendment rights. You cannot yell fire in a crowded movie theater unless there is fire. It's against the law. But you can say that the military are the worst trained military or unprofessional people out there ever. And always have been. Here's the catch. Those who have served and those who are currently serving will be disagreeing with this very strongly in every way, shape, and form. And those who are going into the military, who seek the military service, those are the ones we have to watch out for, because we still need their participation in the upcoming events that we have not foreseen yet. But we will need every man and woman available on the front lines. Because in our human history, we have a hell of a lot of conflicts going on, and we constantly need the meat to feed the meat grinder. We have our military to protect our homelands, our philosophies, our way of life. And fortunately, because we're one of those rare countries that actually do support the freedom of speech, we can also denigrate our own defenders, but don't expect the defenders to be happy with you who start the denigration. And for the record, I apologize if I offended any military personnel, past or present. Notice I didn't say anything about future yet. About calling these guys the worst soldiers of anything, or similar to those lines. My family, along its lifelong lineage of several generations, has served in different ways and forms and function. They have served. I had served, not in the military, but in support capacity. That's what happens when you're a caregiver. We all serve in our own ways. I was happy and proud to do so. That's why I don't denigrate the uniform or the service, whoever wears it, of whatever branch it is, of whatever country they serve. They get my respect. And that includes the knotheads we're still shooting at in the first place, if we're still shooting at knotheads. Because you got to respect their commitment to whatever they're wearing a uniform for. Beyond that, that's up to you guys, not me. So, I'm not saying give Tucker Carlson a break. I'm saying, Tucker Carlson, karma's going to be biting you in the ass one way or another. I'm not holding on to the leash. I am not the dog handler at this point. But the dog's already loose. And eventually, the popular opinion in the form of karma will be going against you one of these here days. I just hope you got enough padding on that tush of yours. As for serving in the military, Tucker, you'd never be a good soldier, and neither would I. If anybody has been monitoring my own videos, they know about my own medical history at this point over here. All you got to do is your research. You want to come after me? Come after me. We'll have a verbal joust.